a particular couple of verses in it that God spoke to me a few weeks ago. And when you look at the book of Hebrews, it opens obviously in chapter 1. It's funny that, isn't it? Have you noticed that? But in chapter 1, you find that God starts to emphasize about his son Jesus and how he's going to speak through him. And that's what we just heard. It was demonstrated before I even got here that the Father spoke through his son and through Roy. And it talks about him in these last days. And I just want to read to you Hebrews 1. We're taking a bit of a change of direction where we've been for a while, but Hebrews 1, I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. And let me just start. It says this, okay, long ago, and at many times, and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things. Through him also he created the world. He, Jesus, is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature. And he upholds the universe by his word, the word of his power. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of majesty on high, having become as much superior to angels as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs. And here we have it. In this final chapter, in the last days, Jesus has the final word. It's him. It's him. That means it's not you. It's not me. It's not the book that you read or the sermon that you listen to. It's him. He has the final word in your life. When he speaks through someone, he's saying, I've the final word. It's not what you reason. And I look at this and just these opening things, there are 7 things he wants you and I to catch. 7 things that he points out in these 4 verses. Number 1, he's telling us that Jesus is the approved heir of all things. He's the one that has approval. And that's why it's good to be in him. Number 2, he's the creator of the universe. Everything that was fashioned was through him. Number 3, he reflects the nature, the glory of God. If you want to ever look at God and want to know what he's like, you see it in Jesus because he reflects his perfect representation. Number 3, he reflects the glory. Number 4, he's the exact imprint, which is he is the exact representation of the Father. Number 5, he upholds the worlds by the power of his word. Jesus holds everything together. He holds you together. He holds me together. If he were to miss or sat down or take a nap, if that were possible, everything would disintegrate. Everything would fall apart. There'd be nothing left. It would be obliterated because he's the one that holds it together by the power of his word. Number 6, he made purification of sins. That is so fundamental in Christianity that you got to work this out. It's not what you do, it's not what you say, it's what he done and what he said. That's massive. That's massive. And yet there are so many people in our world that profess Christianity that will say, well, it's about what you do. It's not. It's about what he done. He made purification. He made us right. He set us apart. And number 7, that tells us he sat down. He sat down beside the majesty on high. And he inherited a name that's more excellent than anyone's name. He is number 1. And this is his final words that he's speaking. And here's the truth. The Hebrew people, the people that this letter's written to, weren't listening. They weren't hearing. So God spoke to the writer. Nearly said Paul. But he spoke to the writer. And he said, I want you to go and tell these guys because they're not listening. Because my spirit's speaking, but they're not listening. So let's write it down and send it around the churches. Let them all read this. Because sometimes my people, or maybe it's more than sometimes, don't listen. And he's saying, write it down and tell them. This is really underscoring, when we read these verses, the significance of Jesus and his role, his ability to deliver you and I from fear, to set us free from the things that run rampant in our mind. Whether it's a fear of death, whether it's sin, how it ensnares us, but it's affirming something. It's affirming the connection that the Father and Son that has, and how much that Jesus actually wants to help you and I. That he's constantly saying, I want to reach out and deliver you from what you're in. But the question arises when I read this. If God loves me so much, if he loves you so much, why does it feel, or why does life feel difficult or so difficult at times? And that just sort of flares up. I don't know how you look at that, but sometimes I think that. And I suppose I want to give you an answer to that right off. It's really like this, because life is a journey. Walking with Jesus is a journey. Coming and having salvation is a journey that you're on and that I'm on. We are journeying through life. It's a bit like it goes from being weary to find rest. It goes from being alone to find presence. This is a journey. And if you're weary and you're not finding rest, that's what he wants to bring. If you're feeling alone, he wants you to experience his presence. He really does. He is so set to say, I want to be there and with you. 7 things that he speaks of in 4 short verses. And he's saying, basically, do not ignore Jesus. Do not ignore the Son. Do not ignore him. Whether it's in worship, whether it's in prayer, do not ignore him, because he is the center. Do not get into a place of unbelief where it's just and you just read the scriptures, but you forget about the person that you're connected to. Somewhere we need to think about this. Here he's telling us something about the Son. He's the radiance of the glory of God. He's the radiance. He shines like the glory of God. And if I think about that for a moment, you'll remember that Moses, way back in the Old Testament, went to God one day and he says, hey, God, because he hung about on the mountain. He met with him. He seen him. He got the commandments. He got all these revelations. And one day he says, hey, God, thanks for all the stuff. Can I see your glory? I was thinking he was shrouded in glory, all this stuff, meeting with God 40 days and all that in the mountain. He says, God, I want to see more. I want to see more than what you've shown me. Somewhere in his mind, he was saying, I've got to see something else. I've got to see something else. What you've given me isn't enough. And I don't know whether you feel like that, but sometimes it doesn't matter what God does. I think, God, I want to see something more. Have you ever been there? God, I haven't got enough yet. And here we find it, that Jesus is shining all this glory. And Moses saying, God, can I have glory? And you know and I know, if you don't, we're going to read it in a second. But it tells us that God showed him what? Can you remember? God showed him his goodness. He says, show me glory. He says, okay, what about this goodness? What about my goodness? So if you're asking God to show you glory, he's going to say, okay, let me show you my goodness. So if we go back to Acts 33, I'm going to read 2 verses, 18 and 19. So this is Moses, and he's talking with the Lord, and he says, and Moses said, show me more. That's my Bible. Yours doesn't say that. Please show me your glory. Please show me your glory. Now, you got to remember, Moses was the guy that God went face to face with. So if you're sitting with God and you're going face to face and you're communicating, what was it in Moses that he thought, hey, there's more than what you've just shown me? I don't know what it is, but he's seen something. And I'm intrigued with the thought that he's going, there's something else I want to see. Look, you give me this download of the tabernacle, this wonderful, Lord, but you got to show me more. God, you came face to face, but I want to see really your glory. God, you've shown me miracles of Red Seas opening and closing and deliverance and plagues, but I want to see more. I want to see your glory. I want to see you in a way that I've not seen you. And that just captivates me. And there are a few things that Well, let's just read it. He says, Moses said, please show me your glory, verse 19. And he said, God said, I will make my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord, Yahweh. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious. And I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And there are 5 things there in that simple verse that God says, I want to show you when you're asking about my glory. And he starts off, he says, I want to show you my goodness. I want to reveal to you my name. I want you to catch hold of my graciousness. I want you to really see my graciousness and how it touches you. I want you to understand my mercy. And he implies, and all this is going to be directional, because it's going to direct your whole life. 5 things in a simple verse. He says, I want to pull out, I want to show you about who I am. So Moses is asking a question, and God's saying, well, look, this is a big thing. But it starts with goodness. And so often we kind of miss that and don't catch hold of it. But when God passed by, it was him who was passing by in goodness. He said, look, I want you to understand that as I pass by you, I'm going to show you who I am. Not only is he going to show Moses who he is, but if we are saying to him today, God, show me your glory, he's saying, okay, when I pass by, I want you to understand that I made you for my glory. I fashioned you. Glory, look, it's a hard word to unpack. Even God had to take 5 runs at this. Okay, when I said, well, I'm going to explain to you who I am, and he says 5 things. So you can't really catch it in a sermon. It's too vast and it's too big. But one of the things that we have locked in are some of the renowned theologians that just say, well, the word is kavod, and it means the weight of his presence, the heaviness when he's in the room, or when you meet with him, you just feel the weight of the presence of God. In fact, even now, it feels like there's a silence, if I said it that way, in the room. There's a stillness that doesn't feel natural at the minute. Can you feel I don't know how you say that, can you feel a hush in the room? So I can only look at that and think, surely that's got to be something of his glory that settles, that stops thoughts, stops minds, stops wanderings, where he's going, hey, I want to do something called glory. 2 Corinthians 4:6 says, for God who said, let light shine out of the darkness, has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of God in the face of Jesus Christ. Because you're made for it, he said, I want to put glory on the inside of you. I want to cause it to shine in the darkness that's in you, Lewis, or in you, if you want to put your name there. God says, I want my glory to shine from you. I want it to, out of the darkness that's called you, I want my glory to come forth. Glory speaks of God expressing himself. That's why when we read in Hebrews, nothing was made without it being made through Jesus. Nothing. Nothing was shaped. Nothing was fashioned. It was all down to the working of the Lord. You can go read that in John 1. A while ago, I was in a meeting. I wasn't in this church, and I was standing, and I noticed there was a couple of people in front of me, as you do, and they were sick. They weren't well. In the middle of the meeting, God said, can I get some glory? Can I get some glory? And he's speaking to me. He says, can I get some glory? And I'm sort of taken back a bit that God's interrupting my thought pattern of where this meeting's going. He said, can I get some glory? And I was looking at the sick people, and he's saying, can I get some glory? And probably I was realizing at that moment that God was saying, I need an action from you, Lewis. I need an action from you. He says, can I get some glory, I need you to do something. And when the Lord speaks like that, sometimes it takes me back. I don't know about you, but I step back and go, whoa, well, what are you saying? And it's a bit like he's saying, well, what are you looking at? And I said, I'm looking at sick people. He says, well, I need you to take an action. I need you to do something. And probably if I give you a couple of points, I only got 3 this morning, but he was saying this, can I get some glory? And then he added on to it, through you. Can I get some glory through you? And I'm wondering, sometimes does the Lord look at you and you find yourself in a scenario and he says, can I get some glory today through you? Because I designed you for glory. For my glory, to represent me just like my son did. And said, I want to get glory through you. And that took me back. I don't know whether it makes you think a bit that when you're doing your day, God says, I want to get some glory through you. Because so often we're off on our days about what we want. Isaiah put it this way. I'm going to read it in the New, is it the New Living Testament? Is that right? Or New Living Translation. What do you hear what Isaiah says? Bring all who claim me as their God, for I have made them for my glory. It was I who created them. Now that applies to everybody that's in this room today. And some people that are watching online. God said, I created you for my glory. I'm the one. If you're claiming me as your God, I'm looking at you and I'm saying, hey, I created you for my glory. So can I get some glory through you? And all of a sudden you start to think to yourself, wow, I'm not asking you to do what you think you should do. That's not what I'm asking you. It's a bit like we heard the word this morning. God says, well, I want you to get your hands off that and probably your hands on something else. In other words, there's something in that God says, well, I want actually to move through you. Can I get glory through you? Can I get some glory through you? For me, he was saying, well, Lewis, you know, you're here, you're doing this, you're doing that. Any chance? I have a claim in you. I want to move through you. And I don't know whether you've ever thought about that. Certainly I hadn't in that fashion until then, that moment. When he spoke with Moses, he said, well, it's going to work with goodness. I want to work through you for goodness, and that makes it easy. When you see one sick, you pray. He says, I want to declare my name. I want them to understand something about me, the graciousness or compassion and the direction. Because if you get a revelation of goodness, then you'll not hinder yourself praying for the sick. Hello? Well, I'm going to wait to see if God says. Well, sure he does. But somewhere I think we sort of pull back on the reins of the horse, say, well, hold on a minute. If you remember God's goodness, Jesus went and he told a story about the man, the vineyard owner, representing himself, said, well, you know, I'm going to go down to the marketplace and I'm going to engage with people. I'm going to give them work for a day, for 1 denarii, and away they go, and he picks them up. And you know the end of the story was he went the last hour of the day and he made another arrangements for the same thing. His goodness was, if you work all day, I'll pay you what I said. If you work just a part of the day, I'll pay you what I said. It'll be the same. But I'm the one that's full of goodness. And, of course, the people were arguing, why are you being good? We should get more because we worked harder. And he says, that's not how my goodness works. So there's something about goodness. When he unveils his name, there's let me say it this way, a glory link. When God starts to bring a revelation of who he is, there's a glory link where he moves through you. Or if I said it this way, you have an encounter that you will work for him. That you will do a work of God because you're moving in belief. When he's gracious, he's talking about, I'm going to bend down and stoop towards you. That's his graciousness, that he is coming and going low toward us so that we can connect. Mercy. We know that he's full of mercy because he said, they asked him, are you a God that heals? He says, yeah, I'm willing. He said to the guy with leprosy, I will make you clean. So somewhere we got to understand what he's saying. Isaiah 9 and 7, when we look at the text, it says of the increase of his government and his peace there will be no end. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that means? Say yes or say no, but say something. Well, what he's really saying is, you see, when I rule, it doesn't stop. It just multiplies and multiplies. And that's why Moses is saying, God, can you show me some more of your glory? Why? Because this always increases. And sometimes, or maybe you're looking at your life and you've stopped, you're stuck, you're dead, you're stuck in the water, you're stuck in the mud. Because you think that you know everything that there needs to know about everything about God. And God said, no, not really. You're just stuck. You're not understanding that I'm a God that moves by revelation. That I'm the God that says my increase doesn't stop. My rule and my reign never ceases. It's constantly moving forward. You're not going to arrive there. This thing grows. And he says, can I get some glory through you? I'm going to look at, can I get some glory through the things you've heard? I'm going to look at, can I get some glory through you paying attention? Because God's looking glory today. He's looking glory through you, through me, through us, through how we live our lives. And he's saying, hey, I want to kind of get some glory. How many people here have been baptized in the Spirit? Raise your hand quickly. Loads of us. Brilliant. Praise God. If you're not, you need to get that. Let me just tell you, it's not so much that you get like underwater and up. It's not really a bit like that. I think it's so much more. It's not that happens to you. It's what you allow to happen in you. That you allow him to move. That you allow him to flow. That you come to the point, say, Lord, I yield to you. And then there's this, let me call it an uproar in your spirit, where the Spirit of God has full reign in you, and you become aware of all the manifestation of who he is. Do you know, to bring God glory, it tells us in Romans 15 that we can glorify God with one voice. With one voice. It's probably why I keep saying, be on time for church when we start first song. Why? Because we're meant to be with one voice to glorify him. That when we start to lift our praise, that we're here on time to say, God, we're doing this. By the way, we start here at 10 o'clock. If you've been coming at 10:30, you've been late. I'm teasing, we start here at 10:30. But guys, I want to encourage you to be early, to start with one voice to glorify him. To be ready and have yourself prepped to go and grab and allow yourself to be ignited. You know, in 1 Corinthians 6, it tells us that we glorify him in our body. You glorify him in your body and how he's allowed to move through you and how I allow him to move through me. Peter talks about we glorify him, 1 Peter 2, talks about we glorify God in our conduct. What do you hear? Especially if you're suffering because you're a Christian. If you're getting a hard time because you're a Christian. That's how you glorify him, because you don't whinge. You glorify God. In fact, everywhere that Jesus went, when you look at him when he walked on the earth, whether it was he was at a wedding or whether he was at a funeral, it didn't really matter to him whether he was out fishing, whether he was at the party down the street. It didn't matter whether he was at home, whether he was in the marketplace. Wherever he found himself, he found an opportunity to express his identity and reveal the glory of God. Every place that he found himself. There was no place that was separate from it. And I really believe that today when God is looking at you and I, and he's saying, can I get some glory through you? He's actually looking at you and I, and he's saying, hey, do you know what? In the same way, like Jesus, your master, in every aspect of your lives, in every place that you find yourself, allow yourself or allow me to present opportunities in your world to discover opportunities that you can bring glory to me, that you can bring a change in your environment, in your situation, that you can be yourself, but you can still reveal the glory of God. He's not asking you to become anybody else other than you, but you allow him to manifest his glory through you. In the same way that Jesus reflected in me, saying, will you allow me to be reflected in you? And it's an appeal very much today from the Lord. I believe this is an appeal to you. It's an appeal to you, and God says, can I get some glory through you? He's asking you a question that you've got to answer. You've got to respond. You've got to make a decision in your heart to say, well, yes, Lord, you can. Yes, Lord, I want that. It's not me telling you. It's me asking you. It's me asking you. Just like he asked me, can I get some glory? Hebrews 2, 1 and 4. Let me just read this and show you where probably over the next couple of weeks in this text, another 4 verses I just want to look at. Hebrews 2, verse 1 through to 4. Therefore, why? Because of what I told you in Hebrews 1. Therefore, we must pay closer attention to what we've heard, lest we drift away from it. For since the message declared by angels proved to be reliable, and every transgression or disobedience received a just retribution, how shall we escape if we neglect such a great salvation? It was declared at first by the Lord, and it was attested to us by those who heard. While God also bore witness by signs and wonders and various miracles and by gifts of the Holy Spirit, distributed according to his will. So here we have the writer, and he's writing to these Hebrew Jews, and he's saying, guys, I want you to remember something. I want you to get this in your head. I want you to pay attention, close attention. I want you to be thinking. I want you to be engaging. These Hebrews had left the temple. They had left their religion, so to speak. They had left how they'd been following Yahweh. They had made a profession of who Jesus was. They were saying he's the Messiah. And now, we're talking about people who are Christians. Now, they're in danger of renouncing him and returning to their old practices. In the midst of this argument, the writer says this. The Son is greater and he's better. He's superior than angels. He's more superior. And he issues this warning and this exhortation at the same time. And he's saying the New Testament replaces your truth. The words of Jesus replace your truth. What you think, what I think, what our perceptions are, what our learning has taught us. The words of Jesus replaces all that. There's somewhere where he wants to get glory through you and through me. And he's having this debate with these guys. He gives them this exhortation. Pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening around you and in you and through you. Pay attention what's happening in the world. Pay attention. Stop going about with blinkers on. Pay attention. You're about to renounce Christianity and return. And I've seen and I've watched people do it. You see, the nature of sinfulness, when we get down the road of sinfulness, this is what it does. Sinfulness tells us to let truth slide. Let it slip. It colors around the edges when it's not to be black and white. It says, look, it's all right to cross outside here. And that's what sin does. Adam in the garden was careless. He was really careless with what he was entrusted with. He became, would you hear this, indifferent to God's commands. He just decided, hey, do you know what? I know God said that, but he came up with another idea. In Romans 5 and 19, Gwen, would you just fill it up for me, please? Well, I'll just go anyway, sir. For as by one man's disobedience, talking about Adam, the many were made sinners, so by one man's obedience, the many will be made righteous. That word obedience, by the way, is a bit like, it means this. I know you hear, well, it's a sin, disobedience, it's hearing amiss, and that's true. But it also means, what do you hear? To hear alongside. To hear alongside. So you hear a truth and then you hear alongside that truth. And you're called into conflict with hearing alongside. And you start to think about, well, it's not that you're failing to hear, you're just hearing a couple of things at the same time. You're hearing a truth and then a variation. In other words, when Adam was in the garden, he was hearing alongside what God had commanded. Or let me say it this way. God said, Adam, pay attention. But Adam had inattention. And I think that's something that rolls over right from Adam to today and will continue into the future. That people will have inattention to what God is actually saying at any given time. And that's what God just said this morning through Roy. Through that prophetic word. God said, you're not paying attention. And I don't think it's a reprimand, it's a rescue mission. It's a God who says, I better reach out because you're about to drown or you're about to get yourself in a lot of problems. So we don't want to be caught with inattention. We want to pay attention. And sometimes what we do when we get careless, we back carelessness up. How do we back carelessness up? We back it up, but I want this. I think this would be good. And of course, we back it up because we're under pressure and we feel maybe persecuted with the pressure and need to do. And sometimes people, as in the light of what happened to these Hebrews, they stopped paying attention to what God had said. They had found themselves in a place where they disconnected from a church truth. Well, what would that be? Let me just tell, stay in the book of Hebrews, Hebrews 10:25. It's very clear. In fact, 24 says, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, verse 25, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching, the day of Christ. Hey, make sure you don't neglect this. This is something that happens. Don't neglect this. Here's a truth that slips. Why? Well, I've got this other thing I want to do. And I get it and I can hear it, but the warning is clear. For these guys, they were trying to flee from Judaism. They were persecuting, the Jews were persecuting those Hebrews who were switching to Christianity. They were moving away from the temple and they were saying, we want to get you back to practice what you used to. But yet it was a mistruth. They had been caught up. They were heading back to the temple. Why? Because the temple was easy. Why was it easy? Well, it was easier because you just followed a set of rules and then done your own thing. But God's saying, I want to get glory through you. I want to get glory through you. And let me tell you what they were doing. They were in a place where they were selling their birthright. You see, when I was born again, when you were born again, when you came to Christ, you were given a birthright. But you can sell it. Anybody think of anybody who sold their birthright? There's mumbling, but can anybody let me know who it was? Esau. Let's just stay with Hebrews. Hebrews 12, verse 16. Make sure that no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal, for a bag of chips, for a bowl of rotten soup, for a burnt piece of toast, for 2 seconds of joy, satisfaction. And he sold everything out. He let go of the whole lot, and just as you read it, look what it says. For you know that afterward, what do you mean afterward? Well, he sold out his birthright. When he desired to inherit the blessing, he was rejected. No, you're not getting it. For he found no chance to repent, though he sought it with tears. God, I'm sorry, let me do it again. Let me have another run at this. And God says, no, look, I said to you, you said no, we've moved on. We've moved on. Or said, well, I'll give you the offer, and you decided, no, I don't want it. And God says, all right. Well, that's on you. Well, I've changed my mind. No, we've moved on from that. And for me, that's frightening. But these guys, you've got to understand, we're writing to Christians here. And he's talking to Christians. He's talking to these guys. He says, if you're going to go back to all these rules, you're letting go of the birthright. I have brought you to be birthed into something that's good, something that's wholesome. I'm asking you to pay attention. I'm asking you to pay attention means to hold your mind focused. I'm going to focus on this. I'm not going to be distracted. To hold your mind and realize you're being called to partner with him. He's calling you to partner with him. Can I get some glory through you? The other thing I want to bring to you, he says, we read it in the text, can I get some glory through the things you heard? Can I get some glory through the things that you heard? Can I get some glory through the things that Jesus spoke to you? Because I know he has spoken to you. If you're a child of God, he has spoken to you daily. In other words, he's sort of looking and he's saying, will you heed what you hear? See, God has a stake in your life and in my life. He's got a stake in your life and in my life. He's got a stake in your life and my life because he loves us. He paid a price. He paid a cost. He worked a redemption. He has a claim and a stake on you and I. And I want to say to you this morning, if God has a claim in you and God loves you, and I believe he does, I believe he desires to be loved back. Would that be right? So he's saying, well, I'm going to love on you. I expect you to love on me. So that's his claim. Well, I paid a price and paid a cost for your redemption. And I'm looking at you and I'm just wondering, the Lord says, can I get some glory through the things you heard? Can I get some glory through because I told you I love you and you're going to love me and people are going to see you praising me and we're all together in one accord and we're allowing God to manifest his glory in our bodies. So, hey, here we are. And he's saying, this is cool. You're not shrinking back. You're not running away. But all of a sudden I'm going to get glory through you because you've opened the door. He expects you and I expect me to love him back. He expects you and I, and this is maybe difficult for you, but he expects you and I to spend time with him. Is that wrong? So he looks and says, I expect you to spend time with me. I expect that. I expect you. Do you remember the time? Do you remember the time that you would have shared your heart with him? Anybody remember that? And no matter what happened in your world, you went and told him. Do you remember that? And you said, God, look, this happened today. I broke my nail and it really hurt. And it seems so insignificant, but you wanted to talk to him, just to communicate with him. And he's looking and he's saying, well, do you remember the time you used to share your heart with me when you first met me? And for a few months, you loved him with everything that you had. Everything that you had. Every moment, he was the center of your life, and you always wanted to commune with him and talk with him and get to chat with him. And the things that you heard from him, maybe you were reading the Bible and something spoke to you and you talked to him about it. But when you heard something, you engaged with him about what you heard. You decided to talk to him about it. We call it prayer. And then maybe you had a regime that you read your Bible every day. Maybe 2 or 3 times a day. Maybe even more. You just constantly were reading the Bible. And you thought to yourself, oh, I want to keep reading this. Why? Because it's your word. And there was this place where you were saying, God, I want you to get glory through what I hear because you're a God that communicates. And then you were to get into worship and you thought, I'm just going to worship. And for me, I remember the days struggling to raise my hands because that was weird, wasn't it? Lifting your hands to somebody that's not there. And then you realize one day when you were reading that he was there and he could see you and he listens to your thoughts. So you raised your hands. Say, God, this is me worshiping you. And then I remember the first day that I danced. It took me months to be able to dance because it was so into me. I didn't want to look like a fool. There's 80-year-old people, 80-plus-year-old people in this church that dance unto the Lord. Why? Because they're not embarrassed. But what about if the wrong bits wobble? You know, you ever get that one, you know? It's all right if you're a woman. See if you're a man and your moves are moving. It's just terrible. But somewhere you got to get over yourself and say, do you know what? If he's worthy, he's worthy. And why am I so... I mean, has the Lord ever talked to you in the bathroom? Do you never feel embarrassed or in the bathroom? Say, Lord, I'm on the toilet. And he looks at you and he says, I made them parts as well, Lewis. Don't worry about it, son. And I go, oh, that's right. Forgot about that. But there... Sometimes you just need to get over yourself. But do you remember when you were first saved and you thought, committing to God is the most natural thing in the world? It's the most natural thing. What? I'm doing that. Why? Because that's what he said. And you just run and God's saying, can I get through some of the stuff you heard when he said, why don't you and I run together? And say, God, that's a great idea. I'm going to run with you. And it was kind of cool. And walking in integrity didn't matter. And those days were so real. And then you became aware of the spiritual realm. Did you ever wake up one day and you realize, wow, there's angels? And we're not alone in this universe. I need to phone a scientist. You're right, there is life out there. And here. They're called angels. And they're demons, by the way. But you became aware of the spiritual realm. And you thought, oh my word, oh, hey, whoa. It's not, you can gaze at the sky and think, it's maybe jam-packed with beings that we don't become aware of. Maybe you came and God says, the things you heard when you come round to my office and you went through deliverance. And I have to look at the back wall, so I'm not looking at anybody because there's a lot. I look at the camera, and if you're out there and it was you, well. But when you come round and when the Holy Spirit came, you manifested, and these demons moved out of you, and you told me very clearly, wow, I feel so at peace. There's such a weight that's off me. My mind's clear for the first time in years. Because sometimes our brains are cluttered, and you're thinking, my head's a mess. And I said, no, the demons are messing with your head. Sometimes we kind of think, well, that's not real. I'm telling you, it is real. It is real. It is very real. Well, why don't people say it? Well, sometimes it happens at the front here in the prayer line. Sometimes it happens around the office. But it's very real. We're lured away from who he is by spiritual forces. Well, they haven't got me. That's the first indicator that they have got you. That you think they haven't got you. We continue, we're in a battle. But what did you hear? What did he speak to you? What was it that he communicated to you? What was it that he spoke to you? Do you know, I want to say this, if he spoke something to you, don't dare back off. Don't dare back off. Don't move 1 inch. Don't. Gwen, can you throw up for me, please? Can you throw up for me, please? Luke 10, 18 and 20. We'll hear what it says. And he said to the disciples, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I've given you. Have you ever heard him say this? Authority to tread on serpents and scorpions. And over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you. Nevertheless, don't rejoice in this. Don't rejoice in that stuff, that the spirits are subject, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven or the Lamb's book of life. He says, I want you to rejoice over that and not get caught up. You see, there's something God says, I want you to keep this. Keep listening is the message of Hebrews. Keep listening to what he said. Never shrink back. Never move away. Listen to Jesus, because that's where gain is. That's where gain is. And sometimes when you meet a know-all, you see the know-all of nothing, because it's an ever increasing. and they've just parked up and they've got bogged down, they've got set and they've been housed in, and they stop growing in the name of I know it. And that becomes another God, and you follow other desires. Can you imagine, like we've all got friends or we've had friends, and you have a friend that you shared everything with, right? You shared everything with this good friend and you always talked. And then that friend finds other friends. And they stop talking to you and they go to their other friends. I mean, that's really nasty, isn't it? Isn't it? And sometimes I think about the Lord, when we were, hey, you're my buddy, Lord, and then we find other friends. Or maybe we should call them other gods and other desires, where we stop talking to him and find other ways. Let me just kind of give you the last one quickly. God says, can I get glory through you paying closer attention? Can I get some glory by you paying closer attention? Isaiah 55:3, go and throw it up for me, please. Incline your ear and come to me. Hear that your soul may live. And maybe that's what you need to hear today, that your soul will live. And I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast, sure love for David. Can I? See, when you talk about inclining your ear, it means to stretch your ear, to get to be excessive with trying to listen. Get to the point to stretch until you get the goal of what you're after. He's telling you and I to be guarded in honoring him in our relationship with him. He's actually saying this, will you please be in balanced people toward him, toward Jesus. He says, I want you to be in balance in everything that you do, so that when you get to a point when you're saying, this is me balanced, he says, right now, lean over toward me and incline. Be in balance toward me. And that's what he looks at from you and I. He says, I want you to get there, to be in balance. See, we used to meet him often, but then in a quiet time, and then little by little, under pressure, when you had responsibilities and fears, the time became shorter. And then you started to miss days, and some missed weeks, and some missed months, where you would stop talking. And then one day, you probably, like me, ran down the stairs, ready and eager to meet your day, and hadn't talked with him. Because that's how quickly it just runs in. But yet it started with, and he's looking and he's saying, can you pay closer attention to how you walk? Can I get some glory through you by you paying attention? He wants to work through you. He wants you to pay closer attention. About the gifts. What about the gifts of the Spirit that he gave you that lay dormant? What about the expectancy that you used to have? What about the angels that you used to be aware of all the time, and all of a sudden it's gone? What about when you gave with a joyful heart and now you don't give? What about when you used to pray and you were keen to pray and it stopped, or you were reading? Or what about when you were coming today? Did you say, God, I'm going to encounter you today? Where did that go if it's not there? And if it's not there, should we pay closer attention? You see, I want to close this, and you say, Liz, that's really good. And I said, well, I know. I'm just wondering, has God got a complaint today? Have you ever thought God complains? Have you? Have you ever thought God might complain? You see, I look at it this way. God does 24/7 beside me and beside you. So I'm going to read Psalm 103, verse 9, just one verse. Right here it says, he will not always chide, nor will he keep his anger forever. He will not always chide, nor will he keep his anger forever. I probably just want to point this out to you, because you know what it's like when to chide. Some of your Bibles might say he will not always contend. He will not always, it means have a lawsuit against you. And by the way, the word anger is not in the original text. It's not there. It's just superimposed by someone. So when you're reading that, you might sort of think, he will chide, but not forever. He will chide, but he will contend, but not forever. He will have a complaint, but not forever. Did you get that? Sometimes we read that and think God's angry with us. It's not what it's saying. It's just the way it's written in English. And it takes you to bury down and look at some of the original text to sort of work that out. He said, I will not contend or chide or not always complain. Now I look at God and I say, God, you have every right to complain about me. You have every right to complain about me. And I don't know whether that fits you, and God's got every right to complain about you, but he's every right to complain about me. Because I'm the type of person that's in one ear and out the other. You are not, you say I'm slow to listen. And it lacks so many things that he says. Maybe it's spun into your life. Some people just say, well, there are other truths like I'm just going to miss church or I'm not going to give or whatever. But there's a form of neglect that just comes into your world. And God says, well, I'm going to complain about that. I run with you 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You won't even talk to me. What did it do on you? What did it do on you? And God saying, well, look, I have an issue with that. Are you sure? Yeah. He says, look, I'm contending. I'm not always going to do it. I'm not always going to do it forever. But I'm saying, look, I have a problem here. You're not communicating with me. You're not communicating with me. You see, I believe that God does have a complaint with some of us. He certainly had a complaint this morning when he says, get your fat fingers off that, whatever you're doing. Let it go. Look, it's a bit like he's going, would you forever get your hand off it? Many times I need to tell you. Many times I need to reach out and, look, this is nuts. I don't know how you need to have it shaped for your mind or for your heart, but there's something that's important with that. But he's not going to do it forever. He's not going to give up on us. Don't ever think that. I believe he'll finally get through to you and I. He will. It's like the psalmist who said, goodness and mercy will follow me. As you walk with God, as you're in harmony with God, it's going to follow. I love the idea that it follows. But it gives me that idea that most of us are running ahead, and he says, well, I'm pursuing you to get this to you. If you stop long enough, I'm going to get you with it. But when we stay in harmony with him, with honor and praise, I'm followed by his goodness. I'm followed by his goodness and his mercy, because the enemy plans don't follow. Because I've got a rear guard, and so have you, when we allow that to take place. Habakkuk 2:14 says this, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. The knowledge, the yada is the word that's used. It's the experiential knowledge. It's the knowing personally. The earth will be filled with the experience of God's glory, the weight of his presence. Relational encounters, he says. Isaiah tells it this way in Isaiah 6:3, and I called to another and said, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full. It is full of his glory. And I have a question about that. If his glory is not far away from us, why do we not experience it so much? God's already said, this earth is filled with my glory. My kavod, the weight of my presence, the opportunity to experience. And that makes me want to go, oh God, I want to experience you more. Isaiah 55 verse 6, go and throw it up for me, please. And we're done here. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Like you seek friends. Maybe you're seeking somebody today for a cup of coffee before you go home. And there are times when God speaks or touches us in a service and we just need to pray and talk with him. You've been sitting close maybe with God for an hour and you think, I don't want to leave God. I just want to be here. And seek is the word daresh or darash. It means frequently visit him. Frequently go to him. Rub against him. Tread the path that he treads. Desire to know him call on him when he's near. God, I desire to know you. I desire to know you. I desire to know you. It means in to fall into him. I'm going to fall into you, Lord, so he can reveal his heart. Close your eyes for a second as the worship team goes up.